To Think or Not to Think by Queenie Eanaj. Introduction. The brain won't shut up. You ever try to stop thinking and your brain laughs at you? You say, I'm done overthinking this. And 5 minutes later, you're replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, like it's breaking news. It's wild how the mind works, how it can be both our safe place and our worst neighborhood. I've been there. You sit there late at night, staring at the ceiling, having full conversations in your head about things that may never even happen. The brain just won't quit. It plans, it analyzes, it replays, it argues, it mourns, it imagines. It's like a 24-hour talk show with no commercial breaks. But here's the thing nobody tells you. The mind doesn't know when to stop thinking. It's not built with an off switch. It's a survival machine. It's always scanning for problems, even when none exist. Psychologists call this the default mode network, the part of your brain that lights up when you're not doing anything. Basically, the wandering mind. Sounds harmless, right? Except studies show that when this network stays too active, anxiety, depression, and indecision start creeping in. So yeah, your brain means well, it's just bad at resting. And we live in a world that rewards it for that. Think harder, hustle faster, make the 5-year plan, manifest the 10-year goal. We glorify the grind, but quietly, we're all burning out on our own thoughts. To think or not to think isn't about becoming empty or careless. It's not about silencing your brain and living in a fog. It's about learning the difference between thinking and being. Because sometimes your thoughts are trying to protect you, and sometimes they're just trying to keep you busy so you don't feel what's really going on. This book is a conversation. Me and you, sitting down to figure out how to quiet the noise, not by fighting it, but by understanding it. We'll talk about what science says, what life teaches, and what peace really feels like when you stop living entirely in your head. We'll question the thinkers, Shakespeare, Buddha, Socrates, Confucius, and see what their wisdom looks like in this noisy modern world. And through all that, we'll circle back to one truth. Life doesn't happen in your thoughts. It happens in your being. So if you're tired of thinking yourself in circles, if your mind feels like a crowded room that forgot where the door is, let's walk through it together, slowly, gently, with honesty. Because to think or not to think, maybe that was never the question at all. Maybe the real question is, are you ready to be? Chapter 1, To Be or Not to Be? That is the question. William Shakespeare. You ever sit somewhere, maybe on your bed late at night, and realize your brain just won't shut up? Like it's on full blast, spinning every thought, every memory, every what if at the same time. And suddenly, you're not just thinking, you're living in thinking. You start asking questions like Shakespeare did, but instead of poetry, it's panic. Am I enough? Did I say the right thing? What if I fail tomorrow? To be or not to be? That line hits because it's not just about life and death, it's about existence itself, about showing up, about being present, about living rather than replaying life in your head over and over. Here's the tricky part. Thinking is amazing. Seriously. It's how humans built cities, discovered electricity, wrote symphonies. Thought is a gift. But like any gift, it can be dangerous if you misuse it. And overthinking? That's when thought starts running the show instead of guiding it. It's when thinking doesn't serve you anymore. It traps you. Let me explain. Scientists talk about something called the default mode network, or DMN. It's a network in your brain that becomes active when you're not focused on anything in particular. When your mind is idle, the DMN starts spinning stories, planning futures, reviewing past mistakes, basically your mental chatter engine. And here's the kicker. When the DMN stays too active, it lights up the same areas of your brain that respond to real danger. So when you're replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, or worrying about something that might never happen, your body literally reacts as if it's in danger. Cortisol rises, your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense, all for something that exists only in your mind. Wild, right? This is what overthinking feels like, living in scenarios that don't exist. And the longer you stay there, the further you get from actually living in the real world. Your brain thinks it's keeping you safe, but it's really just keeping you trapped. I've been there, lying in bed, wondering if I made the right choices, running through conversations I'll never have, imagining futures that may never come. It feels productive in a way because the mind thinks it's problem solving. But here's the truth. Thinking doesn't always solve problems. Sometimes it just exhausts you. So what does it mean to be? To really be? Not just exist as a body, but to exist as a living, breathing human fully present in your life. Being is noticing the moment without trying to control it. It's letting yourself feel without arguing with reality. It's noticing your breath, your heartbeat, the warmth of sunlight, or the hum of the refrigerator without your mind spinning it into a metaphor or a worry or a plan. And here's something else. Being is brave. Because to truly be, you have to surrender certainty. You have to let go of thinking that you can predict or control every outcome. You have to trust that life will meet you where you are. Psychology backs this up. Studies show that when you practice presence, when you observe thoughts without judgment, activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part that overthinks, quiets down, and the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest part of your body, takes over. Your body literally relaxes. Your mind feels lighter. Peace becomes tangible. So thinking isn't the enemy. Thought is a tool. But overthinking is like using a hammer to stir soup. It's the wrong tool at the wrong time, and it just makes a mess. Here's how I like to think of it. Thinking is the map. Being is the walk. You can study the map all day, memorizing every street and landmark, but until you take the walk, you haven't truly experienced it. Life happens on the walk, not in your head. And yet, we hesitate, we delay, because walking means uncertainty. It means showing up without guarantees. That's terrifying. That's the edge Shakespeare was writing about, the moment before the leap. Being doesn't require perfection. Being doesn't require answers. Being just requires presence, feeling, noticing, allowing yourself to exist without rehearsal. So for this chapter, for this conversation, here's my invitation. Take a breath right now. Feel it in your chest, feel your shoulders, feel your heart beating. Notice the sounds around you. Your brain will try to interrupt. Let it. Just keep coming back to the breath, to this moment, to the being that exists underneath the thoughts. To be is not passive, it's radical. It's choosing life over rumination, action over speculation, feeling over theorizing. And that, my friend, is where we begin. Chapter 2, It Is What It Ain't. Folk proverb. You ever catch yourself believing something that isn't even real? Like, really believing it with every fiber of your being, and then later realize you built this whole world inside your head for nothing? That's what this chapter is about. How our minds take a tiny spark, a glance, a word, a pause, and turn it into a firestorm that doesn't exist outside our thoughts. I remember one morning, a friend didn't reply to a text I'd sent. Not even a seen notification, just nothing. And immediately my brain went to work. They hate me. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Are they upset with me forever? By the time I finished spiraling, I was exhausted. And the reality was, nothing had happened. They were in a meeting, that's all. I had spent hours living in a story that wasn't real, feeling hurt and anxious over a fiction my mind created. Psychologists have a name for this: cognitive distortion. Basically, your brain is wired to find patterns, even when none exist. It wants to protect you, to warn you, to anticipate danger. That's useful if there's a real threat, a wild animal, a risky decision. But when the danger is just a thought, it's exhausting. Overthinking hijacks our emotional system. Cortisol spikes, heart rate increases, muscles tense, all for a story that exists only in our head. And the thing is, we do it every day. Sometimes it's big, sometimes small. Maybe you replay a conversation at work, dissecting every word your boss said, imagining all the ways it could have been a trap. Or maybe it's personal, a relationship, a friendship, a message, an argument, and you start rehearsing scenarios that will never happen. You get trapped in the loop, and for all the effort, nothing changes. The world outside your head keeps moving, and you're stuck in a parallel one you made up. Here's where it gets interesting. The mind doesn't just trick us emotionally, it tricks our senses too. There's this phenomenon in neuroscience called predictive coding. Basically, your brain is constantly making predictions about the world based on past experience, and then correcting them as reality arrives. That's why sometimes you see things that aren't there. Your brain fills in gaps to make sense of chaos. You think a shadow is a person. You hear a whisper that's really just the wind. Your mind is, in essence, a master storyteller, and sometimes the story is wrong. I think that's what this proverb, "It is what it ain't," is really trying to tell us. Things aren't always what they seem. What you fear, what you obsess over, what you build into a narrative, often it isn't real at all. The danger isn't outside of us, it's in the stories our brain insists are real. But here's the good news. We can notice when it's happening. This is where mindfulness, presence, and a little self-compassion come in. Studies show that when we observe thoughts without judgment, noticing them as thoughts rather than facts, the prefrontal cortex quiets down, and our parasympathetic nervous system, the part that helps us rest and relax, takes over. Basically, you can teach your body that the story doesn't equal danger. You can live in reality instead of fiction. I started practicing this slowly. Every time my brain spun a narrative, I would pause and say to myself, there's another story my mind is telling me. Let me watch it for a moment, see how it moves, and then let it go. Sometimes it was just a cloud passing by. Sometimes it was a big thunderstorm of imagined betrayal or fear. But watching it instead of diving in made all the difference. It's not about denying your thoughts or feelings. It's about seeing the difference between thought and reality. Your mind might scream, "They're mad at you." But you can notice the thought, step back and say, maybe. Or maybe they're just busy. Or maybe it doesn't matter right now. And in that space, freedom starts. You start to feel the world as it is, not as your brain insists it is. This applies to everything: relationships, work, ambitions, fears. Life is full of what ifs, but most of the time, those what ifs are shadows of imagination. They aren't the truth. And when we spend less time obsessing over them, we see what actually exists. Here's the trick. Give your thoughts a name, give them a stage, and let them play without taking the lead. Treat them like a movie you're watching, not a battle you're fighting. Because living inside the stories that aren't real is exhausting. Being present in reality, that's where energy, clarity, and peace live. So the next time your mind starts turning a tiny spark into a wildfire, try this. Pause, breathe, notice the story, and ask yourself, is this real or is it what it ain't? Sometimes just noticing the illusion is enough to step out of it. And that, my friend, is the first step toward freedom from overthinking. Chapter 3. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Lao Tzu. You ever sit around thinking about doing something? A big change, a new project, a conversation you've been avoiding, and realize you've spent days, weeks, even months planning it in your head, and yet nothing has actually happened? Yeah, that's overthinking at work again. Here's the thing. Thinking convinces us that preparation equals progress. That if we just plan a little more, study a little more, wait for the perfect moment, we'll finally do it right. But life doesn't work that way. The perfect moment, it's a myth. And the longer you wait, the more your mind spins and the further away you get from actually moving. I remember the first time I wanted to start a personal project that terrified me. Writing a book, I spent weeks outlining every chapter in my head, imagining every possible obstacle, rehearsing excuses for why I might fail. By the time I looked up, the fear had grown so big it felt impossible. I was paralyzed. But one day I realized the only way to stop the endless thinking was to do something, even if it was tiny. I wrote one sentence, just one, and then another. Suddenly, the spell of overthinking broke. I was moving. I was being instead of endlessly planning. Psychology actually supports this. There's a concept called action bias, the idea that taking even small steps reduces anxiety and clarifies thinking. Our minds get trapped in loops because thinking feels productive, but movement creates real feedback. The brain sees progress, feels reward through dopamine, and suddenly the mountain we imagined in our head isn't so impossible anymore. Action breaks the spell of thought. It reminds the mind that life happens in the doing, not the planning. Even small steps have power. Making a phone call, sending an email, taking a short walk toward a goal. All of these are proof that you are capable, that you are alive, that you can be present. Here's a story that always sticks with me. A friend of mine wanted to run a marathon. She spent months imagining it, worrying about training plans, nutrition, injury, whether people would judge her pace. She never actually ran a single mile. Then one day she just stepped outside and ran a block, and then another and another. The first step didn't feel heroic. It felt terrifying. But after that, she kept moving. And by the time the marathon rolled around, she had already done the hardest part, starting. That's what Lao Tzu meant when he said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's not metaphorical fluff. It's literally true. The mind overcomplicates, fears, and spins scenarios that paralyze us. The body, however, learns through movement. It learns that action teaches what thought cannot. Here's another angle. Neuroscience shows that the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that plans and analyzes, is great for preparation, but terrible for starting. It can't actually create change on its own. The motor cortex and the basal ganglia, the areas that govern action and habit, need movement. You have to start, you have to step. Even the tiniest action trains your brain that it can handle life's challenges. So what's the practical takeaway? Start where you are. Start small. It doesn't have to be perfect, polished, or final. The step itself is the teacher. Waiting for clarity is just thinking too much. Doing creates clarity. And here's the beauty of this. Once you start moving, you don't just gain momentum, you gain presence. You stop being trapped in mental loops because the world is happening outside your head. You feel it in your body. You see results. You adapt, you learn, you live. So if you've been thinking about something for months, years, even days, don't wait for the perfect moment. Take one small step. Make that phone call. Send that message. Open that blank page. Walk outside. Move in the direction of life, no matter how small the motion, because the journey isn't about having all the answers before you start. It's about starting and letting the answers come on the way. And once you take that first step, the mind quiets, not because it stops thinking, but because it realizes the fear it built is no longer in control. You are walking, you are being. And that, my friend, is the difference between a life of overthinking and a life of living. Chapter 4, Not All Those Who Wander Are Lost. J.R.R. Tolkien. You ever feel like the world is pushing you to have a plan? To know exactly where you're going, who you're becoming, what your next step is? And if you don't, there's this quiet, nagging pressure whispering, you're behind, you're wasting time, you're lost. But here's the thing, wandering isn't the same as being lost. Not really. Wandering can be a way of being fully alive. It's a way to explore, to notice, to stumble upon moments and truths you never could have planned for. I remember a trip I took years ago, driving with no set destination, no playlist even. Just me, the car, and the road. At first it felt wrong, reckless even. My brain kept asking, why aren't you going somewhere? Shouldn't you have a plan? What if you waste time? But then something strange happened. I started noticing the trees, the way the light hit the highway, the songs drifting from the radio that seemed to pick themselves perfectly for the moment. I talked to strangers at small town diners. I got lost a few times and laughed about it. And somewhere in that wandering, I felt fully alive. Not thinking about life, but living it. Psychology actually supports this. Studies on what they call mindful exploration show that unstructured experiences, wandering, trying new things without expectation, boost creativity, reduce stress, and improve emotional resilience. The mind loves labels and boundaries, but life doesn't always fit neatly into them. Wandering breaks that pattern. It reminds you that you don't always need a map to learn something essential. Overthinking loves to tell us wandering is a waste. If you're not moving toward a goal, you're falling behind, it says. But overthinking only sees the world through its own narrow lens. It forgets that life is experienced, not planned. When you wander, you allow life to show itself. Its textures, its surprises, its small miracles that no plan could anticipate. Even in everyday life, wandering can happen without leaving your town or your room. It's in the way you explore ideas without judging them. Try a hobby just to see what happens, or take a different route to work and notice the bakery you never knew existed. You're wandering, and in that wandering, you're present. Your being. I think Tolkien got it right. Not all those who wander are lost. Some are exactly where they need to be, experiencing, exploring, noticing, and learning in ways the mind could never schedule or predict. And here's the paradox. The more you try to control every step, the more you get trapped in your head, labeling life as success or failure, right or wrong. But when you wander, even aimlessly, you discover that life doesn't have to be categorized to be meaningful. So next time your mind tells you you're wasting time, try this. Wander a little, literally or metaphorically. Take a route you've never taken, explore a topic you've never read about, or simply let your thoughts drift without judgment. Let the moment unfold without a plan. Because wandering is not the opposite of purpose. Sometimes wandering is the purpose. And in that wandering, you find life. Raw, beautiful, unpredictable, happening all around you. And that, my friend, is the difference between a life lived on autopilot in your head and a life fully present in the world. Chapter 5. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The Buddha. Have you ever noticed how your thoughts feel like little architects, quietly building the house you live in every day? Sometimes they're brilliant, designing rooms of creativity, hope, courage, and sometimes they're chaotic, tearing down walls, painting over the windows with doubt and fear. Buddha put it simply, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. At first glance, it sounds neat, almost poetic, right? But the more you sit with it, the more it feels like a mirror held up to your brain, reflecting not just who you are, but how you got there. Every fear, every habit, every belief has its roots in thought. I remember a time I got caught in a spiral of self-criticism. I had this idea that I should be further along in my career, that I should have handled friendships better, that I should have figured life out by now. My mind ran a full-blown narrative every day, and I could feel the tension building in my chest. The thoughts weren't just ideas. They were instructions, shaping my day, my moods, even how I walked into a room. Psychologists have a name for this, rumination. It's when the mind keeps looping over worries, mistakes, and what ifs. And here's the kicker. Research shows that rumination lights up the same neural circuits as long-term stress. That means your own thoughts, unchecked, can make your body feel trapped in danger, even if nothing in the world is threatening you. Your brain is brilliant, yes, but sometimes it's a little too good at creating problems that don't exist. And yet, thought isn't the enemy. It's the tool. It's how humans create, innovate, dream, and survive. The problem comes when we give thought too much power, when it becomes the boss instead of the advisor, when it dictates our emotions, our actions, our sense of self. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine once spent weeks worrying about a conversation she had at work. She went over every word, every tone, every possibility of being misunderstood. By the end, she was exhausted, her confidence shaken, and her stomach a knot of anxiety. But when she finally spoke to her colleague to clarify, everything was fine. The tension she had lived with in her mind wasn't reality. Her thoughts had created a parallel world where she was already defeated. Here's where Buddha's insight becomes practical. Your thoughts shape who you are, but they don't have to define you. You can hold them lightly. Think of thoughts like birds landing on your shoulder. You notice them, you acknowledge them, but you don't have to let them fly into your mouth and take control. You can watch them, you can learn from them, you can let them go. Modern psychology gives us tools for this too. The practice of metacognition, thinking about thinking, teaches us to notice mental patterns without being swept away. Mindfulness practices do the same, helping you observe thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky instead of waves dragging you under. When you do this, you start to see that many thoughts are just stories. Stories built from fear, habit, or old experiences. They're not commands. They're not reality. I remember trying this myself one evening when I was obsessing over a friendship that had gone cold. My mind was running full speed. Did I say something wrong? Did they get mad? Are they avoiding me forever? I paused, breathed, and whispered to myself, this is just a story my mind is telling me. And just saying that out loud changed everything. I could feel space opening in my chest. I wasn't trapped in the narrative anymore. I was observing it, letting it move through me, instead of letting it control me. The paradox is beautiful. Thoughts create who we are, but only when we let them. They can be the foundation of strength, clarity, and insight, or the chains of doubt, fear, and anxiety. The key is balance. Notice your thoughts, use them, but don't let them drown you. There's also something fascinating about how thought interacts with action. The brain doesn't just respond to ideas, it responds to movement. Taking even a small step, a call, a message, writing a page, walking outside, signals to your brain that reality is bigger than the story it's telling. Action anchors thought in the real world. It reminds you that you are not just what you think, you are what you do. So, what's the practice here? A few steps I've learned to slow the mental storm. Notice the patterns. Name your thoughts. Rumination again. That's enough to create distance. Observe without judgment. Let thoughts drift by like clouds, not commands you must obey. Take small actions. Move in the world. One step is more powerful than 1,000 mental rehearsals. Return to presence. Anchor in breath, body, or moment. Life is happening right here, not in the loop of your mind. All that you are, your fears, your habits, your strengths, begins in thought. But all that you can be begins when you notice thought, step back, and choose presence over rumination. That's the liberation Buddha spoke of: awareness, balance, and freedom from the tyranny of endless mental loops. So here's the gentle truth. Your thoughts are powerful. They can create worlds. But the life you want, the peace you want, the being you want, it exists outside thought. And noticing that is the first step toward it. Because all that you are, all that you will be, begins in thought, but only when thought serves being, not the other way around. Chapter 6. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Confucius. Have you ever noticed how we humans have this uncanny ability to take something simple and twist it into 1,000 layers of drama? A morning coffee becomes a philosophical dilemma. A minor misunderstanding becomes a life or death crisis. Life is simple, Confucius said, but we insist on complicating it. And often the biggest culprit is our own thinking. I remember a day not too long ago when I spent an entire afternoon agonizing over a small decision. Which of 2 dresses to wear to a casual dinner? By the time I finally picked one, I was exhausted. Not because choosing was difficult, but because my brain had run a full-blown mental marathon. What if I look silly? What if people judge me? What if it's the wrong impression? All for something that, in reality, would have mattered maybe? Not at all. Psychology explains this tendency. Humans have what's called executive overload. Our brains can only manage so many decisions, calculations, and what-if scenarios before they start creating stress. Overthinking doesn't make the right choice easier. It actually makes everything harder, and often it prevents us from acting at all. The more we rehearse, the more complicated life feels, and the further we drift from simplicity and clarity. Here's the thing. Simplicity isn't about laziness. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about cutting through the noise and acting from what actually matters, not from the endless loop of possibilities your mind invents. When you focus on the essentials, on what truly impacts your life, things become clear. And often, those essentials are incredibly simple: connection, presence, kindness, action. That's it. I like to call this practice skills of unthinking. It's about learning when to stop analyzing, when to trust your instincts, and when to let life reveal itself in its raw, uncomplicated form. And yes, it's a skill because we aren't naturally trained to do it. We're trained to think, to calculate, to predict. But the art of unthinking is about pausing, observing, and stepping into life without rehearsing every moment. Here's an example. I once had a friend going through a breakup. Instead of overanalyzing every text, every tone, every imagined slight, she decided to simplify. She focused on what she could control: her own actions, her own kindness, her own presence. She stopped spinning stories in her mind, and in doing so, she discovered clarity. She realized the past didn't need to define her, and the future didn't need to terrify her. Life wasn't complicated, her thinking made it so. Science backs this up too. Studies on decision fatigue show that the more choices we overthink, the less energy we have for meaningful action. Simplicity doesn't reduce the richness of life. It actually preserves it by freeing space in your mind and heart to notice what matters. Overthinking clouds perspective. Simplicity reveals it. Here's a little experiment I like to share. Take one small area of your life and deliberately simplify. Maybe it's your morning routine, your email inbox, or even your internal dialogue. Notice how it feels when you remove the extra mental weight. Chances are, clarity blooms. You start seeing that life isn't as tangled as your thoughts made it seem. And this is where the art of unthinking truly shines. It's not about ignoring the mind. It's about letting the mind serve life instead of controlling it. You don't need to solve every problem before it happens. You don't need to analyze every possibility endlessly. Sometimes, the simplest action, a kind word, a small step, a breath, is enough. And it's often more powerful than 1,000 mental rehearsals. The irony is beautiful. When we stop overthinking, life becomes richer, more vivid, more present. You notice the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the subtle connections with people around you. Complexity fades, and simplicity opens the door to being. So, here's the invitation. Notice where you're overcomplicating. Name it. Step back. Ask yourself, does this really matter in the bigger picture, or is my mind spinning a story? And then practice letting it go. Move in life. Feel life. Be. That is the skill. That is the freedom. Because life at its core is really simple. We just have to let go of our habit of making it complicated. Chapter 7. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Socrates, you know that feeling when you think you've got life figured out, and then something happens that reminds you, oh no, I don't actually know anything at all? That's Socrates talking. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. At first, it can feel a little discouraging. Like, wait, after all this thinking, all this analyzing, all this trying to be smart, I'm admitting I know nothing? But here's the magic. That admission isn't weakness, it's freedom. Because the moment you stop pretending you have all the answers, you stop spinning endless mental loops trying to predict the future, control outcomes, or prove yourself right. You open space to actually experience life, not just live inside your own head. I remember a conversation I had with a friend who was struggling with a big career choice. She had thought through every scenario, weighed every possibility, researched every angle, and yet every option felt paralyzing. She was stuck in the analysis trap, believing that if she didn't know exactly what would happen, she couldn't move. After a long coffee, I simply said, what if you don't need to know everything? What if you just take one step and let the next step reveal itself? At first, she resisted. Our brains crave certainty. We're wired to seek patterns and control outcomes. Evolutionarily, that made sense. Predict the danger, avoid the risk, survive. But now, in a world that's more complex than anything our ancestors faced, that same craving can trap us. Overthinking becomes a cage. Uncertainty becomes anxiety. The more we insist on knowing, the less freedom we have. Psychology actually confirms this. Research on intolerance of uncertainty shows that people who insist on knowing, controlling, and predicting everything are more prone to stress, anxiety, and indecision. Conversely, those who accept uncertainty tend to be more resilient, creative, and adaptable. There's real power in admitting, I don't know, and that's okay. And here's the paradox. Admitting you don't know doesn't mean you stop learning. On the contrary, it opens the door. It invites curiosity. It allows you to explore without judgment. When we stop insisting on certainty, we notice more, listen more deeply, and respond more thoughtfully. That's wisdom in action. I remember another moment, a small, almost silly one, but it stuck with me. I was in a meeting at work, and a colleague presented an idea I didn't understand. My first instinct, pretend I knew what they meant, nod along, avoid looking stupid. But something clicked, and instead I said, I don't quite follow. Can you explain that part again? The conversation shifted, not because I looked smart, but because I allowed myself to admit ignorance. The colleague explained, I learned, and the idea became richer than I could have imagined. It was a small moment, but it showed me the profound strength in saying, I don't know. Socrates wasn't just talking about abstract philosophy here. He was describing a mindset, a way of being in the world. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of complexity. No amount of thinking can give us complete control. But acknowledging our limits, embracing curiosity, and stepping into uncertainty, that's how wisdom grows. That's how freedom appears. Here's another thing. The more you accept that you don't know, the less you judge yourself or others for not knowing. We spend so much energy in thought loops, comparing, criticizing, and second-guessing. If I knew everything, I'd never fail. If they knew what they were doing, things would be better. But the truth is, no one knows everything. Everyone is learning as they go. And realizing that, really feeling it in your bones, brings a kind of compassion for yourself and for everyone around you. So, what does this look like in practice? A few ideas. Ask questions instead of assuming. Approach life with curiosity. When you don't understand something, lean into it. Pause before reacting. When the mind wants to overthink or judge, take a breath. Admit uncertainty. Watch what happens. Embrace mistakes as teachers. You don't have to know it all to act. Mistakes are part of learning. Let go of perfection. Life rarely unfolds the way you planned. Accepting that is liberating. Socrates' wisdom is simple, but it takes practice to live. Know that you don't know. Stay curious. Stay present. Let life teach you instead of your mind trying to control everything. Because the moment you accept uncertainty, you stop fighting reality. You stop spinning inside thought loops. You start noticing the world as it really is, rich, unpredictable, alive. And that, my friend, is the freedom of wisdom. It's paradoxical, isn't it? The less you insist on knowing, the more you truly see. The less you cling to answers, the more life opens itself to you. That is the true gift of Socratic wisdom, not knowing and being okay with it. Chapter 8 to be. We've been chasing answers, analyzing thoughts, wandering through uncertainty, simplifying life, and confronting our own minds. And all of it brings us to this, the simplest yet most profound act of all, to be. To be isn't a project. It's not something to achieve or fix. It's not a goal you cross off your list. To be is to show up fully in each moment, to exist in the raw, unfiltered reality of life. It's about letting go of the obsession with control, the endless planning, the constant analysis, and simply allowing life to unfold. I remember one morning sitting on my porch with nothing but the sound of birds and the soft light of dawn. I had no plans, no pressing thoughts, just the quiet. And in that silence, I realized I didn't have to do anything to be enough. I didn't need to plan, worry, or figure it out. I just had to breathe, notice, and exist. And in that, there was a kind of peace I hadn't known I was looking for. Science even confirms this. Research in mindfulness and presence shows that when we focus on simply experiencing the moment, not judging it, not trying to change it, our brains release tension, reduce stress, and increase emotional resilience. Being fully present doesn't just calm the mind, it opens your senses, sharpens awareness, and allows life to touch you in ways thought alone never could. Being is also about surrender, not giving up, but surrendering to the rhythm of existence. Think of a river. It doesn't fight the rocks. It doesn't resist the bends. It flows. It moves around obstacles, embraces currents, and continues forward without needing to know what's next. Being is like that. It's flow without forcing, presence without demanding, acceptance without resignation. And here's the paradox. The more you try to think your way into being, the more elusive it becomes. The mind wants to plan, predict, and control, but life can't be captured in thought. Being requires a little humility, a little trust. Trust that life will happen, that experiences will unfold, and that you are enough exactly as you are. In practice, being shows up in the small things. Feeling the warmth of sunlight on your skin, listening to the laughter of children, walking slowly and noticing the texture of the ground beneath your feet. Letting yourself sit with emotions without rushing or judging. It's the spaces between action and thought, the moments when you aren't doing or analyzing, you are simply existing. To be also allows connection. When you're fully present, you truly see people. You hear their words, their pauses, their energy. You stop interpreting every gesture or phrase through the lens of fear or expectation. Relationships deepen because being invites authenticity. You can't truly give or receive love, care, or understanding if your mind is always running a million scenarios. Being is the quiet stage where human connection becomes possible. So when we come back to Shakespeare's question, to be or not to be, it's not about philosophizing endlessly or solving every mystery of existence. It's about noticing, breathing, experiencing, flowing, letting life happen without overcomplicating, overthinking, or overanalyzing. It's radical in its simplicity, yet profound in its depth. And the beauty is this: being isn't separate from thought or action. It encompasses them. You think, you plan, you act, but you do so from a place of presence, not compulsion. Life becomes a dance, not a battle. Moments are experienced, not dissected, and you discover a freedom that isn't found in answers or conclusions, but in showing up fully for whatever is. To be is a practice. It's a daily choice, a constant return to the present, and it's the most powerful thing you can do, not because it changes the world, but because it changes you. Your perception, your experience, your connection to life itself. To be, simply and fully, is to live. Chapter 9, Conclusion. So here we are at the end of this journey. After wandering through questions of existence, the illusions of thought, the power of action, the freedom of wandering, the paradox of thinking, the simplicity of life, the humility of not knowing, and finally the practice of just being, what have we discovered? The truth is, there's no neat, tidy answer waiting for us on the last page. Life doesn't hand us conclusions on a silver platter. But what we do have is something far more important: awareness, insight, the ability to notice, to breathe, to step back from the endless loops of thought and finally see life as it is: imperfect, messy, beautiful, fleeting. I think that's what wisdom really is. Not a set of answers or rules, not perfection, not even control. Wisdom is the ability to stand in the middle of your thoughts, emotions, and experiences and say, I see you, I feel you, and I am here, alive, present, learning. It's noticing your mind without being trapped by it. It's taking action without waiting for certainty. It's wandering without feeling lost. It's thinking without letting thought dominate. And most importantly, it's being. We've talked about overthinking and rumination, the way our minds can trap us in endless cycles. We've explored how action, presence, and even simplicity can free us from those loops. We've acknowledged that uncertainty isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to embrace. And we've seen that being, pure and unfiltered, is not just a philosophical idea, but a daily practice, the foundation of experiencing life fully. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often beyond our control. That's what makes it alive. That's what makes it meaningful. We can't think our way into the fullness of existence. We can't plan, predict, or overanalyze every step. We can only show up. We can only notice. We can only allow ourselves to be. And here's the gentle, quiet truth I want to leave you with. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to solve every problem or answer every question. You don't have to perfect your thoughts, your actions, or your presence. You only need to come back again and again to the simplest practice of all: noticing, breathing, existing. This is the gift of presence, the freedom of awareness, the wisdom of knowing sometimes that the only thing you need to do is show up for life, to live it fully, to feel it deeply, to accept it in its raw, messy, beautiful reality. So when you close this book, I hope you carry with you the reminder that life isn't somewhere you arrive after thinking it through. It's happening right now. In your breath, in your steps, in your interactions, in the quiet moments of noticing. Life isn't in your mind. life is in your being. And the most profound choice you can make every single day is to simply be. Chapter 10, Author's Dedication. This book has been a journey, not just on the page, but in my own life as I wrote it. Every word, every story, every reflection is a conversation with myself, with you, and with life itself. It is my hope that these words serve as a gentle companion for anyone who has ever felt lost, overwhelmed, or trapped in their own thoughts. I dedicate this book to the seekers, the questioners, the dreamers, and the wanderers. To those who have spent countless nights replaying every detail in their minds, trying to solve the mysteries of life before they even happen. I see you. I honor you. And I want you to know something essential. Within you lies an infinite well of strength, resilience, and clarity, waiting for the moment when you allow yourself to simply be. To the ones who overthink, who hesitate, who wonder if they are enough, you are. You are more than the sum of your worries, more than the weight of your doubts. Life is not about knowing every answer, controlling every outcome, or predicting every step. Life is about showing up, breathing, noticing, and leaning fully into the present moment, even when it feels messy, uncertain, or incomplete. I dedicate this to the quiet power of presence, to the small, unassuming moments where you stop running, stop calculating, and simply exist. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the laughter of a child, the gentle rhythm of your own breath, these are not small things. These are life. They are the true essence of being, and they are available to you every single day if you will simply pause and notice. I dedicate this to courage. The courage to feel deeply, to make mistakes, to embrace uncertainty, and to trust yourself even when the mind shouts otherwise. Every step you take in the practice of being is a victory. Every moment you allow yourself to fully experience life is a triumph. The path may not always be clear, but every step is meaningful. Every breath is sacred, and every heartbeat is a reminder that you are alive and capable of more than you often give yourself credit for. I dedicate this to hope, the quiet, unwavering spark that carries us forward when the world feels heavy, when the mind spins, when life seems too much. Hope is not a distant dream. Hope is right here in this moment, in your choice to show up, to notice, to care, and to be. It lives in your breath, in your eyes, in your willingness to return to yourself again and again. And finally, I dedicate this book to you, dear reader. Thank you for walking this path with me, for allowing these words to accompany you, and for being brave enough to reflect, feel, and grow. May you always remember that life is happening now, that presence is your most profound gift, and that within the act of simply being lies everything you have been seeking. With love, with hope, and with unwavering belief in your journey, I leave you with this. Continue to show up, continue to breathe, continue to be. The world needs your presence. The universe needs your light, and your heart already holds more than enough to navigate whatever comes next. Your one and only Queenie Eanaj.